Welcome to One Word a Day. I'm Sophie, your pilot into the universe of Chinese. Let's continue unpacking supposedly classical China eras concepts. And today we're going to talk about the shi. Shi is kind of neutral in Chinese culture, but it's kind of clustered into the Taoism, because probably Taoism have all kinds of theories about how the world operates, including time. Okay, so how time was expressed, we have simplified, which is the sun plus 寸 inch, the sun inching away, which is explainable as time, right? And the sun plus here, 是, is temple. Or mosque, whatever religion is a special place where people build, not for residence, but for, I guess, your spiritual residence. And that is the traditional Chinese time explainer. And for that, it's hard to see. Like, what does that mean? Like, why temple? Temple of the sun is time. Seems like explainable too, right? Okay, all right. 2,000 years ago, script language gave us more clues because now we see the difference. The 四, even if today we simply or abstracted into a temple for your spirituality, then ancient times, it's simply talking about plantation, farming best practice. The left side is still the sun, okay, which is sphere plus one horizontal line means energy. Energetic ball is our sun symbol. The right side, we have the top and down. The top is a plant. You can visually see growing in the ground. And then the bottom is our three-finger right-hand symbol. That's from your first-person perspective. So it's your right hand. And then we have this one horizontal line, which is not in the physical world. It's like an arrow pointing over there saying, okay, 1 inch down. And that's ancient pulse reading practice. So ancient time before we have all the fancy, expensive medical devices to check your life signals, we simply use human as the sensor. The doctor will put two fingers on roughly 1 inch down of your wrist and can read out your body performance, not performance, your body functioning or any ailment, a lot from human to human touch. Amazing, right? It was still practice, at least when I was in China. And then that kind of universal practice. That's how ancient times before we have different medical devices, we rely on human sensors as the check thing for your health. Then that universal thing was used as like this 寸, not only as 1 inch down, but as the standard, the best practice of things. So when you have the plant on the top and then the best practice, especially it has to be measured. You have to do something right in the right amount or right time or right space, whatever right factor you need to be in, it has to be measured. So here, this indicator from the pulse reading popularized to all kinds of practice. And in this case is farming best practice plus the sun symbol. And that's the full construct of our sense of time. The sense of time for agrarian society is simply to time your farming practice to the best calculated way. And that's kind of almost like it's timing. You have to do it in the right timing. I mean, majority of us, me, and I guess listeners as well, are kind of far removed from the farming culture, lifestyle, and therefore understanding of the criticalness of timing. It's so critical that Chinese have a whole calendar built just for the farming practice. And I guess regional difference of how far away you're from the equator would be factored in, like northern China versus southern China. They probably would practice this timing, this calendar a little bit different. But there were such calendar that's marked down. This is the time when it's supposed to rain. This is the time when you're supposed to plant. And this, when you see this bird comes, you're supposed to do what? So a whole timing book tied to the cycle of the growth of the plant. So you get the best result. So that's the livelihood. It's critical, right? So once you know how we're also bound to farming, then we know timing as a factor of the success of farming. It's critical. So time was constructed by this measured time according to the sun, right? Then you do your farming thing. Okay, 时令, 时辰, 时机. We have three expressions. 令 we talked about not long ago, which is receiving the order. But nowadays we don't distinguish giving versus receiving end, and we just simplify it to order. So time order means season. Reasonable, right? Especially when we know time is tied with farming, with plant growth cycle. So when it's put into order, sequence, then we know it's season. 时辰, I cannot do better than translate both as time. Time. Well, if time is about essentially farming seasoning, right? Calculated, critical moment. You don't want to miss that window, right? You have to do everything according to the sun position. Then the chen is more about, well, I didn't check deep into chen, but I know the ultimate composite meaning of this character is roughly 2 hours to today's clock of like every 2 hours is one 时辰 for Chinese. So the hour here, even if I translate the 时辰 as hour, but actually in Chinese, the ratio, it's just like mileage to kilometer, right? There is this conversion. So 时辰 is roughly 2 hours to the modern, globalized hour tracking. So this chen also is associated with the stars, the space. So if we look at the sun, the closest, the solar to Earth, that as the farming guidance about timing of things, then chen, I believe the ancient observers, the stargazers, the ancient times, they probably used the movement of the star location there to mark the year as well. So that's the origin. So this is more like further out, the space level of time gauging. Because it's interesting to find how before we know the rotation and all that, how the universe was organized before that, when everybody observe, we can see the sun, the moon, right, the stars, right? And then we have to mark our own position, our own timing, our own rotation by looking at everything else. So it's a kind of a relative movement. For Earthlings, we have to find out our own hour by looking at where everything else is located. Just a commentary over there. Okay, 时机, 机 means trigger, and that comes from bow and arrow era, that when you trigger it, that's the moment you release. Is supposedly the killing moment. So the right timing to pull the trigger, and that combination becomes a timing equivalent. So you see, when English, we're talking about timing, right? And we already know, okay, it's related to time, and it becomes kind of an action word, like you aim your action toward that time window. So it's almost like the time or moment guided action trigger. But Chinese explicit to tell you it's about the time. You have to gauge your time correctly and then pull the trigger. And that triggering, that action is already embedded in the Chinese translation of just timing, right? So it's almost like Chinese give you cues, a lot more verbal cues as to what this concept is about. So as a Chinese learner, even if you learn this from everyday conversations, you pick up timing 时机 in conversation. But for me, it's easy to understand because most of the ways Chinese organize their concept, they construct bigger concept or nuanced concept with existing characters, mostly in a logical way. So when I hear 时机 one time, enough, I can understand, therefore remember what that means. It means timing. Okay, so here is time. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. I'll see you in another day. 时